First off, I think we need to normalize lying. We were raised on lies. It's normal. It's a human nature. It's human nature for us to lie. I mean, realistically, let's bring it back to childhood. How many people believed in Santa Claus? Not only did our parents lie to us about Santa Claus, but they put cookies out, they put milk out. I mean, there were actual props to make this lie a bigger thing. Lying is in our nature. You know, we go to someone's house and we may not like the food, but of course they're going to say, "Did you enjoy your dinner?" Most likely sitting in a group of 10 people, we're probably not going to say, "Actually, no, I didn't like the steak at all. It was pretty tough. I thought you did a bad job cooking it." We're most likely to say, "Yeah, it was great, thank you," and we're going to move on, which was a lie, but it's a part of human nature. And some of the statistics that I've seen, and they vary, and I know you know a lot of these as well, but they say a lot of times men will lie 6 times a day, women will lie 3 times a day. But if we normalize lying and understand that it's a part of life, but when it's deceiving someone to either gain or take from that person. And that's what I noticed. So my history on this was I actually started as a store detective in 1994. So I worked my way up from store detective up to a regional loss prevention director. But what we were really focusing on at a regional level was interviewing employees that stole from the company. And internal theft is about $50 billion a year. That's theft of money, merchandise, supplies, and theft of time. So it always made me wonder, why are there so many employees stealing? They say 75% of the employees admit to stealing at least one time in their career. And it made me say, I wonder if some of these body language markers are actually seen during the interview for a job, as opposed to hiring someone who may wind up stealing from the company. Why aren't we using some of these techniques when we're interviewing someone so we can put the right people in place? And yes, they say that 53% of the people lie on their resume. So the techniques that I learned for interviewing and interrogations were mainly for internal theft, sexual harassment, hostile work environment, labor law violations for a corporation. But I took some of those same techniques and tweaked them to put them into a presentation to teach people how to interview accordingly. So it's funny when you brought up the eyes, you know, there are so many different takes on the eyes, you know, but here's another one. And I like to tell people, realize that real eyes tell real lies. The eyes will tell someone if they're being honest or not. Now, again, to your point, it's not one body language marker that means the person is being deceptive. So one tip that I would like to leave with people is about eyes. So as you were saying, a lot of times people will look at you when they're lying and not look away. And I agree with that. But they say that the left side of the brain is the recall part of the brain. The right side of the brain is the creative part of the brain. And when I first learned this technique back in '93, what they were training then was if someone is being honest, they're going to look up and to the left about something they visually saw and they're being honest about. If they look up and they look to the right, they're lying because they're going to the creative part of the brain. The problem that I had with that, and a lot of people had with that, is what if the person is ambidextrous? How do we know if they're right or righty? And you and I talked about this, asking questions that you know someone's going to lie about. But what we've done was reverse. We would ask someone questions that we know someone was going to be honest about. We would set what was called a behavior norm. So we would ask questions like, "Hey, so I heard from the manager you went to Jamaica on vacation. When did you go?" What day was it? What day did I leave? I think it was January 3rd. And now I saw the person look up and to the left. I know when they're being honest, because there's no reason why they would lie to me about why they went on vacation or when they left. They're being honest about that. So now I set that behavior norm, knowing that when that person looked to the left, they were most likely being honest. So later in that interview, when I started to talk to them about theft or some type of negative situation that may make them feel uncomfortable, if I saw them look up and look to the right, there was a big chance they were getting ready to get into their creative side of the brain, which means start a lie.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big teachings of NLP is the up to the left and up to the right, down to the left, down to the right, and that's been largely discredited as a definitive function. But like you say, if you are setting a baseline where, like you say, asking when I do an interrogation, it would be, I'm going to ask questions I know you're going to tell the truth to. I ask questions that I know you're going to lie to, that are not threatening questions. It's just things that people like about, or irrelevant threatening. So like you say, 75% of all people have stolen something from work. 100% of people have thought about stealing something from work. So, if you always ask, have you ever thought about stealing something from work? Well, the person's going to lie. And it may be something as simple as a paperclip, back when they were 18, but their subconscious mind will instantly go back to the time that they thought about doing it. And even though we are very prolific liars, we're really very bad at it. So if you know what to look for, you'll see it. So, if you ask things, like you say, that they're going to tell the truth to, so you can see where their eyes go when they have to think, and you see where their eyes go when they're manufacturing something, you can set that baseline.
Right.
One of the things that I always tell people, are you left or right-handed, Jay?
Right-handed.
Okay, so if you were to hold a baby in your arms, which side would you hold the baby? Which side would the head be on, or the baby's head?
Probably up and as far away from me as possible as I can.
But if you were to cradle a baby, where would you cradle it? Which side?
Left arm.
On your left arm. So the baby would be looking at the left side of your face, correct?
Correct.
This is something that photographers use. You'll see politicians use this all the time. Is that people find the left side of a person's face more attractive than the right side.
Thank you for that tip. I'm going to start looking right now. Appreciate that, James.
Because as babies, most of us are carried on the left-hand side and on the left arm, and we pattern on the left side of our mother's and father's faces. So, if you want, when you take a picture in a portrait, and you probably know this as well, a head cock is also a sign of openness and friendliness. People are more attractive. You're exposing the carotid artery. You're exposing yourself. Caveman stuff. I'm opening my throat. If you ever watch dogs, a submissive dog will lay its throat open to the superior.
Right.
So when you cock your head no more than 15 degrees, it shows interest and it shows openness. And so if your left side slightly cocked on it to the right, you're going to have a more attractive appeal to people than you will if you don't go the other way. And if you watch, politicians do it all the time. Almost always when they do a portrait, it's left side of the face, head tilted slightly to the right. And that's why is that psychology. And what you do, what is it that you look for?
A couple of things you said came to mind as well. And I think that's why this conversation is great, because we can kind of work off each other with techniques that you've learned, techniques that I've learned, and obviously things that you've seen throughout the years, and me as well. You're talking a lot about it from a sales point of view, which is great, because obviously every single person here is a salesman or a saleswoman. No matter what you're selling your business. So this is helpful for everyone. Not everyone is going to be interviewing people for a job, but first off, eliminate interruptions. And what I mean by that is let everyone in your organization know that you're going to be doing an interview. No phone calls, no knocks on the door, no disturbances, take messages. So that interview can be focused, just you and the person that you're interviewing. That means not just silencing the ringer on your cell phone, but if there's an old wall unit phone or a desk phone, I'd actually unplug that phone or take it off the hook. Removing distractions, and what I mean by that is actually not having on the desk a pen where the person can use the pen to release some body language or some energy. Paper clips that are in an office. A lot of times I'll see someone during an interview with a paper clip in their hand. So I would remove all distractions. And to give another example of a distraction, I was doing a sexual harassment interview at a retail or at a store where the store manager was accused of sexually harassing his employees. I had to do the interview in his office. So we're already off grounds. It's not like he's coming into my office. I'm interviewing him in his office. Because of the position, I was able to set the office up the way that I wanted. But one thing that I noticed was that in his office was a picture of him, his wife, and his 3 children. Talk about a distraction for sexual harassment. How am I going to get someone to admit to sexual harassment if they really did it, looking at a picture of their wife and children? So that was a distraction that I couldn't remove. However, I made sure that his chair was moved and it was under that picture, so he couldn't look at that picture during the interview. Organizing the interviewing area, making sure it's neat and clean. And last thing is arranging the seating. So I'm actually going to spin the camera here and see if this actually works for a second, because I think it's very important to see this. Can we see that chair there?
Yep.
All right, so when you talked earlier about having your hands up on a desk, palms showing, when I do an interview, I actually don't even have a desk in between me, whether there's a desk in the office or not. I actually take a chair and push it out in front of me, and then I take a chair, and this is where I do my interviews. So notice how I'm in a chair that has a back that has armrests, spins, and it moves. And I'm going to tell you why that's important in a minute. Notice how the chair here doesn't have armrests, has 4 legs, a back to it so they can sit up straight, and there's nothing else but for you to do but to read body language during an interview. So a lot of times when I'm doing an interview and I'm asking questions that I know they're being honest about, and asking open-ended questions. So like if I'm going to speak to someone about whether they've been terminated at a job before, I'm probably not going to say, were you ever terminated from your previous jobs? Because they're most likely going to say no, whether they were or whether they weren't. But what I will say is, tell me about a time you were terminated by one of your jobs. And if there's a pause for even half a second, that means they're thinking of the time they were terminated, and that's when I'm going to use the rolling chair to my advantage. And I'm going to roll the chair in just a little bit, and I'm going to very nicely, with a low tone of voice, say, hey, look, we all make mistakes. What happened? It may not even have been your fault, but why don't you tell me what happened there? And I guarantee you the person's probably going to be a lot more honest than if I said, tell me about a time you were terminated from a job. Now, if they were never terminated, and that is true, they're probably going to say, I never was terminated. No harm done, we move on to the next question, and that's it.
Right.
But that's how setting up the chairs can be very helpful during an interview. And the reason why it's important also is I've seen a lot of people actually pick their chair up and move it closer to a desk so they can lean their head during an interview. And the thing that the head is the heaviest part of the body when someone is lying. So it's timely and it's body language markers. So is their response timely to my question? So if I start talking about theft in the building, or if I start talking about being terminated from a job, or if I start talking about a previous employee they worked for, if that's exactly when I see them lift that chair up, move the chair over, and lean their head down, there's something that made them uncomfortable about that question. So that's why I use chairs during an interview. And
let me ask you a question, Jay, while you got that chair visible.
Sure.
Do you usually put yourself or the other person higher, or does it matter?
Well,
because that chair is much higher than you.
I'm using this office here, but for the purpose, I try to keep it at an equal length. So that's a great question. I try to keep it equal. It's nothing where I'm better than them or they're better than me or higher or lower. So I try to keep it equal, that my chair is even with theirs. I just don't want them to be able to have many movements. And if they do have movements, I want to be able to see those clearly. And I may not be able to see them as clear as if they were in a wheeling chair.
Right. Now, one of the things that I saw in your video that I thought was great that you use in interviewing, talk about the water bottle.
Oh, absolutely. This is, in fact, I can prove this theory. What I suggest is everyone YouTube the video of when Bill Clinton was being interviewed with Monica Lewinsky. It's many years ago, but check out that 4-hour interview and just check out the first 10 minutes or so when you can see him starting to get nervous. He had a Canada Dry, a can of either ginger ale or some type of diet soda that he actually lifted up to his lips 72 times during the interview. How many sips can you possibly take from a can of soda? So what I've noticed during an interview, and I do this on every interview, I always offer someone a brand new water. Because what I notice is a lot of times when someone's thinking of an answer, what they may do is I may ask a question and they may hesitate. It's what's called a created job. A lot of times when I would do a theft interview, I would say to someone, why don't you tell me about the first time that money was missing from the company that you were involved in? And I may see a person go, money missing from the company? What are you talking about? And they're wiping imaginary lint off of their body. Don't know where it came from, but it was a created job. It was something that when they were nervous, they went to. So to your question with the water, that's what we call a created job also. A lot of times someone may go to answer a question, but want to think about the answer. Whether they need to think about it for a truthful answer or whether they're lying, they may pick the water up, take the lid off, take a sip of water, and then actually answer the question. because they've had time to think of the answer. I've actually seen people pick the bottle up, take the cap off, put the bottle to their lips, then take it away, put the lid back on, and answer the question. That definitely tells me they're lying. They didn't need the water anymore. They had enough time to think of an answer, and their creative job proved that to me. So I would suggest, as a second tip, everyone have a bottle of water in any interview that you conduct with candidates for an interview. I mean, I think you and I on this topic, so I don't know if we should or shouldn't meet for lunch or dinner when we're in Vegas, because I think you and I probably go hours on this topic going back and forth. Different. But a major takeaway that I'm getting here is from you and, of course, from myself, is that we can control our interviews a little bit more than we think. You know, and we can't necessarily control what the person says or does, but we can control the setup of the interview, and we can control what we perceive from that interview a little bit more than what we're doing. You know, and a great takeaway for me that I always use as an example, I don't know if anyone has played pool billiards before, but, you know, when you are learning how to play the game, you're first just learning how to shoot, hold the stick, how to hit the ball. And then you're learning how to hit the cue ball to hit all the balls into the pockets. And then you start saying, well, I have to start learning how to set up for my next shot. So in order to be a good player, you've got to obviously hold the stick correctly, hit the ball correctly, hit all the balls in that you're going for, whether they're high or low. And you also have to try to set up for your next shot in order to win that game and get yourself to the 8-ball. And I feel like interviews are kind of the same way. I mean, you've got to be able to set them up for the interview. You've got to be able to ask those open-ended questions. You've got to be able to read the body language, the facial micro-expressions, and set up for your next question so you can obviously win the game, whatever that winning means to you, whether making the sale or hiring or not hiring a particular person for a job. What's a major takeaway that you have for everyone here in the group?
Well, I think I agree with everything that you said. I think that your analogy with the pool playing is a very good analogy. What I did also with the body language is also linguistic training, so that, you know, if you're trying to, it's one thing to try to set yourself up for the next shot, but also I like to be able to predict what their next shot is going to be as well. You know, I like to force their shot. So, you know, sometimes when you're playing, if you're playing 8-ball, you know, sometimes you may not have a shot, so you just set the other person up so they don't have a shot. You know, you manipulate the table and move things around. And so I like to be able to not only anticipate my next move, but also to be able to anticipate and guide the other person's next move as well. So, but from a body language standpoint, I agree with everything that you just said. What the studies indicate or have shown is that a person who understands and can read body language effectively and micro expressions, when you can read at a proficient level, your sales close rate will go up by 20% or more. Just because it's not because you're catching a lie, but it's that you know how to get to the truth. And so, you know, that's, to me, that's the biggest takeaway is don't look for deception, look for the truth. And we find it through people's inability to effectively lie when you know what to look for.
Very good point. Is there anything that you want to leave the 10X mentors with? Maybe a link, someplace they can go to, a website? I mean, you can obviously say it out loud now, or we can post it in the comments to this live video, that if people are interested in finding out more. Anything you want to add?
Well, we can, I'm all over the place in social media as far as my profiles go. You know, I have a completely open profile, so anybody can see my links and my website, but the website is allincom.com. It's ALLN as in Nancy, com.com.
I appreciate it, James. If anyone wants to find out more about the interviewing class that we offer, you can just Google Credible Security Solutions. We'll pop up quickly in Google and go on our interviewing page. There's more information there regarding that. We also have an active shooter awareness training program that we conduct. It is a 60 to 90 minute presentation. We're actually going to be presenting at a couple of hotels in Vegas while we're there for the GrowthCon. Feel free to like our Credible Security Solutions page, subscribe to our YouTube channel. James and I will put this information in the comment section. If there's nothing else you want to add, James, it was great talking to you. You've got me turning to my left now all the time, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's pretty much the case. Yeah. But yeah, I've had a good time, enjoyed it. Hopefully, the people that have watched and the people who will watch in the future will get something from it.
Sounds good. I appreciate it, James. I'm sure we'll speak soon. We'll email. We'll be in touch on Facebook. And obviously, we'll see each other February 21st.
Absolutely.